Defense to energy deepening of India-France ties amid geopolitical shifts. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited France from February 10 to 12 at the invitation of French President Emmanuel Macron. It was a very significant visit, that is why. This is why. Trump factor global shifts. The PM's visit has two key dimensions: the AI Action Summit, which he co-chaired with the President Macron, and consolidating India-France ties, which were elevated to the strategic partnership level in 1998. The two countries also reviewed the Horizon 2047 roadmap agreed 2 years ago. However, the next leg of the PM's trip to the United States also influenced the visit. While France and other European nations have spent months preparing to navigate the Trump factor, the shocks already appear far greater than anticipated. US President Trump's phone call with Russia's President Vladimir Putin has rattled European capitals that have strongly opposed the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Trump's action spotlights the inherent risk of Europe's strategic dependence on the US. National identity and strategic independence are at the heart of French foreign policy. Russian aggression against Ukraine, however, pushed such ideas to the background. Finland and Sweden joined the NATO following the invasion of Ukraine, but with Trump in the White House, EU nations may be forced to reassess their strategic autonomy and defense preparedness. French views have traditionally converged with the Indian preference for a multipolar world, making India a reliable partner for France. Additionally, the two countries share a strong commitment to addressing climate change, with Trump having announced the withdrawal of the US from the Paris Agreement. France could look to India for even closer collaboration in this area. Unlike commercial exchanges, defense ties between countries carry a political dimension and reflect an understanding of their responsive geopolitical landscapes. Over the years, alongside Russia, France has been a key and a reliable source of defense equipment for India. Such supplies also provide the exporting country with a degree of political leverage and directly impacting the importing nation's defense preparedness. For New Delhi, trust also stems from the fact that France was among the first few Western nations that refrained from imposing sanctions on India following the Pokhran II nuclear test of 1998. Since then, the two countries have collaborated closely at nearly all multilateral forums, including the UN Security Council. There has also been convergence in the security and economic interest in the Indo Pacific. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, France was among the top three global arms exporters between 2019 and 23. Following the Ukraine war, France also figured in the list of top three destinations for the Indian defense exports in the 23-24 last year. India and France also agreed on a defense industrial roadmap to deepen cooperation. The Scorpion submarine project, additional purchases of Rafale jets and helicopters, as well as efforts towards indigenous production, are ongoing under this framework. CIPRI, France was among the top three global arm exporters between 2019 and 2023. Following the Ukraine war, France also figured in the list of top three destinations for Indian exports in 23-24. Unlike commercial exchanges, defense ties between countries carry a political dimension and reflect an understanding of their responsive geopolitical landscapes. Alongside Russia, France has been a key and reliable source of defense equipment. Such supplies also provide the exporting country with a degree of political leverage and directly impact the importing nation's defense preparedness. For New Delhi, trust also stems from the fact that France was among the few Western nations that refrained from imposing sanctions on India following the Pokhran II nuclear test. Since then, the two countries have collaborated closely at nearly all multilateral forums. National identity and strategic independence are at the heart of French foreign policy. For Russian aggression against Ukraine, however, pushed such ideas to the background. Finland and Sweden joined the NATO following the invasion of Ukraine. But with Trump in the White House, EU nations may be forced to reassess their strategic autonomy and defense preparedness. French views have traditionally converged with the Indian preference for a multipolar world, making India as a reliable partner for France. Additionally, the two countries share a strong commitment to addressing climate change. The indigenization process is crucial for India's defense modernization and diversification of supplies. India has offered France the Defense Research and Development Organization's Pinaka multi-barrel rocket launcher during this visit. According to the joint statement, the two leaders agreed to work together more closely on implementing the India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor. India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor that was first discussed on the sidelines of the G20 summit in New Delhi in 2023. It has been planned to include the Eastern Corridor connecting India and Gulf region and the Northern Corridor connecting Gulf region to Europe. It will comprise a railway, a ship rail transit network and supplementing road transport routes. The IMEC aims to provide India with an alternative route to Europe despite challenging security situation in the Middle East. Several European nations are eager to position themselves as key connectors. During the visit, France proposed Marseille, located in Mediterranean Sea, as the strategic hub for the project. Though multimodal transport corridors face greater logistical challenges than direct shipping routes, prevailing geopolitical uncertainties mean that India and most European nations will likely continue favoring multiple connectivity options, making IMEC an attractive option. France is a pioneer in civil nuclear energy, with around 70% of its electricity being derived from nuclear power. Both leaders stressed that nuclear energy is an essential part of the energy mix to enhance energy security and transition towards a low carbon economy. France has offered to build nuclear power reactors in Jaitapur, Maharashtra. However, these projects have faced challenges such as high cost and unresolved technical and legal issues. Under India's Civil Liability for Nuclear Damages Act, a mechanism was laid down for compensating victims for damage caused by a potential nuclear accident. And ascertaining liability. Foreign players have cited this as a roadblock to their entry. With the Indian government now planning amendments to the both 2010 Act and the 1962 Act, the interest among French nuclear power companies could be renewed. However, the focus is now shifting to small modular reactors and advanced modular reactor technologies. These small reactors have important advantages requiring less physical space and lower capital investment. The Union budget presented on February 1 nuclear energy mission worth 20,000 crore was announced for a research and development of SMRs. India and France have signed a letter of intent over cooperation on AMRs and SMRs during the visit. Adani Sri Lanka Wind Power Project. What to know? The Adani Group has written to Sri Lanka's Board of Investment withdrawing from a proposed wind power project in which it had decided to invest more than $440 million as a part of 20-year agreement. The project in northern Sri Lanka's Mannar town and Punarian village is in Kilinochchi district was criticized by countries then opposition and local people after it came to light in 2022. The chairman of Ceylon Electricity Board, Ferdinando, allegedly before a Sri Lankan parliamentary alleged before a Sri Lankan parliamentary panel that Prime Minister Narendra Modi had pressured the then President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to award the project to the Adani Group. Ferdinando later retracted the statement and resigned. Gotabaya posted on X, categorically denying authorization to award the project to any specific person or entity. The Adani Group said the investment was intended to address the needs of of a valued neighbor. The 484 megawatt capacity project was planned amid Sri Lanka's push to promote renewable energy. It became public soon after the Adani Group announced in 2021 that it would develop and run a strategically significant western container terminal of the Colombo port with 51% stake. Adani chairman Gautam Adani visited the country that year to discuss investment opportunities. News of the project MOU was first reported by the Sri Lankan weekly Sunday Times in 2022 and triggered criticism of the opaque process. Petitioners in Sri Lanka's Supreme Court argued that agreed tariff of 0.08 per kilowatt hour could cause losses to Sri Lanka should be lowered to 0.005 per kilowatt hour. Some locals protested against the ecological impact, and CEB unions demanded that contracts should be awarded only after a competitive bidding process. The financial crisis that gripped Sri Lanka in 22 led to the ouster of the Rajapaksas from power. The power purchase agreement was signed in 2024 when Ranil Wickremesinghe was president. During his election campaign, Anura Dissanayake promised to definitely cancel the project as it threatens our energy sovereignty. After his election as president in September 24, a review came, became very likely. This January, the government said it had appointed a committee to examine renegotiating the agreement. Adani Group said on Wednesday that following discussions with the Ceylon Electricity Board and government officials, it was learned that another cabinet appointed negotiations committee and project committee would be constituted to renegotiate the project proposal. After deliberating on this aspect, it was decided that while the company fully respects the sovereign rights of Sri Lanka and its choices, it would respectively withdraw from the said project. What's new in the IT Bill 25? The income tax bill cuts some clutter of the existing act and introduces new illustrative tables. While maintaining continuity in some aspects, there are no major tweaks in penalty or compliance provisions. The Income Tax Bill 25, which was introduced in Lok Sabha on Thursday, intends to simplify India's six-decade-old structure of direct taxation by streamlining provisions, removing obsolete references, and creating a crisper and simpler legal framework. Once passed by Parliament, the new law will likely come into effect on April 1, 26. In FAQs released on Thursday, the Income Tax Department said the bill is straightforward, clear, and easier to understand, with more than 57 tables compared to 18 in the Income Tax Act 1961. Details that are direct interest to taxpayers, including the deductions, TDS, TCS rates, and exemptions, have been provided in a tabular form. It is shorter, all provisos about 1200 and explanations about 900 have been removed. The word count almost halved to 2.6 lakh from 5.12 lakh, and all redundant provisions, including those for capital gains, deductions, and dispute resolutions, have seen amendment over the years omitted. There is no major change in the direct taxation structure. Ensuring continuity and stability, the bill differs from the existing act in one significant way. While it specifies deductions for the rent paid, life and health insurance, premia, contribution to provident fund, and home loan, among others, it does not provide a table for tax rates. The bill is a 622 pages long, about 24% shorter than the 823 page Income Tax Act. This there is focus on simpler language. There are 23 chapters, fewer than 47. There are 16 schedules, two more than in the Act. There are 536 sections compared to 819 sections. Act mentions only 298 sections. However, over the years, new sections were numbered in continuation with the existing sections. For example, the provisions related to tax in special cases were inserted as part of 115 series, 115 AC, AD, JB, VP, etc. The bill introduced the concept of tax year, which has been defined as the 12-month period beginning April 1. In case of business or a newly set up profession, the tax year will begin from the date it was set up and will end with the said financial year. The income tax will be levied on the basis of the economic activity and income earned in a tax year. At present, income tax has a concept of assessment year, which assesses tax on income earned in the previous financial year. For instance, income earned in financial year 24-25 is assessed in 25-26 beginning April 1. Income tax will be levied on the basis of economic activity and income earned in a tax year. Prior to 1989, the concept of the previous year and assessment year were because taxpayers could have different 12-month previous years for each source of income. For April 1, 1989, the previous year was aligned to financial year in all cases. However, assessment year continued to be used for various proceedings under the Act. Thus, a taxpayer had to track two different periods, the previous year, the assessment year, the FAQ said. Social media access virtual digital space has been defined in the powers to call for information by income tax authorities during surveys, searches, and seizures to include email servers, social media accounts, online investment, trading, and banking accounts, remote and cloud servers, and digital application platforms. Virtual digital assets such as cryptocurrencies have been included in the definition of property to be counted as a capital asset of the SEC, along with existing categories of the immovable properties such as land, building, shares, securities, bullion, jewelry, archaeological collections, drawing, painting, sculptures, any work of art. The Income Tax Department said there is no change in the scope of virtual digital assets under the Income Tax Bill 2025. The definition under the bill incorporates the amendment already proposed into the Finance Bill 2025. The section in the Dispute Resolution Panel in the bill provides the points of determination, decision, and the reasons behind it, making a shift from the earlier section which lacked clarity on the manner of issuing DRP directions. Capital Gains Exemption, Section 54E of the Act, which details exemptions from capital gains on transfer of capital assets prior to 92, has been removed. Reductions have been streamlined and outlined exemptions removed. The scope and definition of income tax has been expanded to include evolving income sources, exempt income conditions for claiming exemptions, deductions, TCS have been provided in a tabular form in separate schedules for better understanding. Income tax slabs announced in year's budget will be included in the Finance Act of that year. As of now, the income tax rates announced in Budget 25-26 have been included in the income tax bill. Tax experts said the simplified language and concise form will help taxpayers understand the income tax provisions better. the multiple cross-referencing among the sections, and the rules currently often give rise to complications and disputes. In addition to removal of provisos, explanations, and redundant redundancy has been removed and definitions in multiple places have been consolidated, the tax department said in the FAQs. The proposed bill follows the government's announcement in the interim budget presented in July 24. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman had said a comprehensive review of the Income Tax Act 1960 one would be completed in 6 months. In her budget speech on February 1 this year, Sitharaman said the government has earlier replaced the Bharatiya Sanhita with the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, and the new income tax bill will carry forward the same spirit of Nyaya. The bill, she said, would be close to half the size of the existing law in terms of both chapters and words and would be simple to understand, leading to tax certainty and reduced litigation. However, tax experts pointed out that the new bill lacks any major tweaks in penalty or compliance provisions. By removing the redundant provisions and explanations, it has mainly only made the law more concise. The government has attempted to simplify the Income Tax Act on several occasions previously. In 2018, a task force was formed to draft a new direct tax law that submitted its report in 2019. The UPA government had proposed a direct tax code, and a draft bill was tabled in Parliament in 2010. After review by the Standing Committee, a draft was revised twice in 2012 and 2014, but it lapsed with the dissolution of the 15th Lok Sabha. The new bill will go to a parliamentary committee, after which it will return to the government. After call is taken on including any proposed amendments, the government will decide the date for rolling out the new income tax law. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was greeted by a large Indian crowd outside the Blair House in Washington, D.C. Located in 1651 Pennsylvania Avenue right across the White House, Blair House has been premier accommodation for dignitaries. A high-energy neutrino detected under Mediterranean Sea study. A neutrino detector submerged in the Mediterranean Sea has sniffed out the most energetic ghost particle, yet 30 times more active than the previous record holder. Scientists believe it came from outside the Milky Way. Neutrinos are produced by stars, supernova, cosmic rays, and radioactive decay. Their zero mass Near zero mass earns them the ghost particle moniker. They seldom react with matter. Trillions of neutrinos pass through our body every second. This also makes it very difficult to spot them. Neutrino detectors are located underwater, deep underground, or in polar ice. They try to record the extremely rare instances of neutrinos colliding with matter. The latest findings was by detectors still under construction. Scientists study neutrinos to understand how the universe was created and how it is held together. This is part of trying to understand the high energy processes in the universe, said the co-author of study published in Nature on Wednesday. Congress has a poor showing in assembly elections since its gains in Lok Sabha polls. Had it lost the political momentum and opportunity since 2024? Nirja Chaudhary party has been unclear about whether to forge alliances or go it alone. It had made last minute decisions. The factors that led to gains in Lok Sabha polls remain. Critics include Prime Minister know this. Talk to Congress workers, including those who fought the recent state elections, and they bemoan the lack of party organization in the state after state. The PCCs, the DCCS, and the block level workers who convert sentiment into votes are virtually non existent. As a result, there is a last minute choice of candidates and poll strategy that is hurriedly put in place. Why does the Prime Minister single out the Congress for sarcastic denouncements? There is a clear paranoia that the Indian reality about economy, social injustice, and incompetence and deception will catch up. The PM's constant targeting of Congress shows just how much the latter matters. This refers to the editorial open and robust. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's impassioned opening at the speech at AI Action Summit in Paris underscored the reasons for optimism and caution in development, promotion, and application of AI and large language models, pitching for the open source route to make AI tools accessible and equitable is indeed a unique challenge. It would require the convergence of nations to competing visions and political will from all stakeholders. The accompanying editorial Climate Let Down reveals a clear lack of political will among nations on climate change. This is evident from the continued lack of consensus and commitment to nationally determined contributions pledge. This has already led to multiple missed deadlines on the Paris Pact. Will the future of AI be any different? This refers to the article For Good and for All. The Paris AI Action Summit has highlighted the growing divide in the international community for how to approach artificial intelligence. While 60 nations, including France, India, and China, have committed to promoting accessible and ethical AI, the US and UK conspicuously absent. US Vice President rejection of excessive regulation in favor of AI innovation signals a preference for rapid, unchecked growth, an approach that may risk the unchecked consequences of AI misuse. While fostering innovation is vital, the rapid development of AI without proper safeguards could result in catastrophic consequences. From disinformation campaigns to security breaches, India's stance favoring innovation over regulation may appeal to the US, but the ethical and safety concerns raised by Europe are crucial. In an interconnected world, specialists establishing a global framework that emphasizes transparency, safety, and accountability is necessary to ensure AI serves the global good. A climate letdown, just 10 of nearly 200 countries required under the Paris Agreement to deliver fresh climate plans by February 10, did so on time. Countries missing the deadline represent 83% of global emissions and nearly 80% of the world's economy. Many poorer nations lack the financial resources to compile such complex economy-wide policies. Donald Trump's withdrawal from Paris Agreement is a massive blow to the remission of the climate crisis. Climate change is already having real and damaging effects on the natural ecosystems, but also on communities, jobs, and property around the world. Big emitters whose historical and ongoing pollution has driven the climate crisis must take responsibility and lead by example. How to be a visible politician. Those who can harness the power of different kinds of media platforms will win the perception battle. When Donald Trump took the stage at Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C. for a post inaugural rally, he had the unlikely hero to thank for his victory. Not a Silicon Valley technocrat, not a trusted DC campaign manager, not a donor. Instead, a first year student at a New York university, his son. Influencers, these are individuals supported by strong research and production teams who have built a large following on social and digital media, largely based on their personal brand equity. Influencers share their content that aligns with the personal brand image, and hence the scope still tends to be little restricted. Often, these influencers have a strong personal opinions and biases and create content to pander their core viewer base. After Trump calls with Putin, there are openings for peace in Europe. They must be built on. Almost 3 years since the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 22, prospects for peace have emerged following a phone call between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump said that the negotiations to end the war would begin immediately after the lengthy and highly productive phone call. He even expressed optimism about reaching a peace agreement, but even while advocating negotiations, the author of the art of the deal seems to have sacrificed leverage by revealing the American position. Just before the call in Brussels, his defense secretary Pete Hegseth laid down American contours of the deal. He told a meeting of NATO allies that a return to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders before Russia annexed Crimea was unrealistic, and that US did not see Ukraine's membership of NATO as part of the solution. Hegseth added that US troops would not be a part of any post-war security presence in Ukraine. Almost 3 years since the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 22, prospects for peace have emerged following during a phone call between US President Trump and Putin. Trump said the negotiations to end the war would begin immediately after a lengthy and highly productive phone call. He even expressed optimism about reaching a peace agreement, but even while advocating negotiations, the author of The Art of the Deal seems to have sacrificed leverage by revealing the American position. Just before the call in Brussels, his defense secretary Pete Hegseth laid out the American contours of the deal. He told meeting of NATO allies that return to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders before Russia annexed Crimea was unrealistic, and that US did not see Ukraine's membership of NATO as part of the solution. Hegseth added that US troops would not be part of any post-war security presence in Ukraine. Major obstacles existed in working out a peace agreement. The biggest, perhaps, is the need for territorial concessions by Ukraine and its need for credible security guarantees to guard against future Russian aggression. Russia currently occupies about a fifth of the current. Just before the call in Brussels, his defense secretary Peter Hegseth laid out the American contours of the deal. He told the meeting of NATO allies that a return to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders before Russia annexed Crimea was unrealistic. Major obstacles by Ukraine and its need for credible security guarantees to guard against future Russian aggression. Russia currently occupies about a fifth of the country and has demanded that Kiev cede the territory in future settlement and become a permanently neutral country thereafter. Russia currently occupies a fifth of the country and has demanded that Kiev cede the territory in future settlement and become a permanently neutral country thereafter. Ukraine, on the other hand, seeks Russian withdrawal from all its territory and membership of the NATO to guarantee its security. Twice in recent days, President Vladimir Zelensky has said he is willing to negotiate with Putin if Western allies offer security guarantees as part of the settlement. All this is a distinct shift in the tone of conversation between US and Russia. Note that the former President Joe Biden had not spoken to Russian President in nearly 3 years because he saw the latter's action as those of a war criminal. The war is currently more or less at a stalemate. For more than a year now, the battlefield advantage has been with Russia, though it has not lost more troops compared to Ukraine. Just how serious the manpower issue is for Moscow is evident from the North Korean troops fighting for Russia, along with assortment of other foreigners including some of India. Battlefield advantage has been with Russia, though it has lost more troops compared to Ukraine. NATO's support for Ukraine in the last 3 years has been less than stellar. Aid came through bilateral channels, not NATO's coordination. Equipment has come in penny packets, and logistical challenges have hindered the quick delivery of ammunition and spare parts. The alliance was itself poorly planned, and for a full-scale war in Europe, and its own stocks of equipment and ammunition were depleted. Even the Biden administration provided in bits and pieces, some grudgingly keeping in mind the dangers of escalation. There have been internal differences on any move to offer Kiev accession into NATO. The US, Germany, Spain, and Belgrade have made their hesitation on that account clear. The Ukrainians worry that if Russia is given control of the economically and militarily important Donbas region, it could adversely affect their ability to defend themselves in the future. In any case, Kiev has seen Moscow break the post Cold War security guarantees offered by the Budapest Memorandum and forcefully occupy Ukrainian territory. As for Russia, it contains a grudge against NATO for breaking its oral commitment not to expand eastwards. Viewed in balance, there may be some value in the current American strategy. A no NATO concession may persuade the Russians to come to a negotiating table. As for Ukraine, note that Americans have not, as of now, said that all the territory captured since 2014 would become part of Russia. There is room for negotiation here. But the Americans have made the alternative clear that to their own allies who want to fire their guns off the shoulders of the Ukrainians. The US may continue to supply weapons to Ukraine as a part of separate minerals for weapons deal, but it is clear that it will not be a security guarantor. That leaves the Europeans holding the can. Under any deal, this is an opportunity for European Union which must work a way out of leading its own military revival as a precondition for any kind of security guarantee for Ukraine. They have already taken some first steps, like ramping up munition production, but they need to do much more. The Ukrainians worry that if Russia is given control of the economically and militarily important Donbas region, it could adversely affect their ability to defend themselves in the future. In any case, Kiev has seen Moscow break the post Cold War security guarantees offered by the Budapest Memorandum and forcefully occupy Ukrainian territory. As for Russia, it remains a grudge against NATO for breaking its oral commitment and to expand eastwards. A common understanding among people is that disasters and accidents are meant for their neighbors and many unknown people out there. No one thinks that calamity may strike them too, for which they need to remain prepared. Climate change has enhanced the frequency of disasters, and among them, a silent killer is the heat wave, particularly for our country. India is experiencing more frequent, prolonged, and severe heat waves. These extreme temperatures pose significant risk to public health, infrastructure, and livelihoods, especially in the vulnerable regions. Yet, it is a domain about which public knowledge remains abysmal. The NDMA, which manages public policy on disasters, has classified heat waves as a serious hazard and taken it upon itself to enhance public awareness. A 2 day national heatwave workshop to bring all stakeholders together is being organized in the capital on this issue. The Paris summit's goal of keeping global temperatures rise below 2 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels is now almost impossible to achieve, according to an analysis by the James Hansen of Columbia Climate School. The impact of these extreme weather events is multifaceted, affecting public health, agriculture, energy supply, and overall economic stability. 90% of the Indians are vulnerable to heat related health diseases. The strain on healthcare systems is overburdening facilities, particularly in rural areas. The economic faces productivity losses as the majority of the workforce works outdoors. The World Bank estimates that India could account for 34 million job losses due to heat stress related productivity declines by 2030. Elevated temperatures accelerate evaporation and increase water demand, straining already limited water resources. 54% of India's land is experiencing high to extreme water stress, according to World Resources Institute. The use of groundwater has led to decline in water levels, and the demand for water is increasing while supply is not keeping pace. High temperatures can also lead to crop failures, reduced yields, and increased irrigation demands, affecting food security and water management. Heat waves can significantly affect the power industry in India in several ways, including increased demand, cooling needs, air conditioners, and other cooling systems during heat waves lead to a surge in demand. This has an impact on the availability of power for industries and poses a challenge for the manufacturing sector. As per the available data, 70% of power in India is produced by thermal power plants, which rely on water for cooling. High temperatures can reduce their efficiency and increase the risk of overheating. The NDMA, under the chairmanship of Prime Minister, has played an active role in helping states, districts, and cities develop heat action plans, a structured approach to mitigating heat wave impacts. It has been organizing national workshops on the preparation and implementation of HAPs every year. It has taken several initiatives to mitigate the effect of heat waves, which are now considered a priority hazard. It has issued guidelines and advisories for state governments, district administrations, and local authorities. These guidelines provide the foundation for states, districts, and cities to develop their own HAPs, enabling a decentralized approach to heatwave management. Public awareness programs have been launched to educate people on heatwave risk, particularly health related issues, prevention, and response. A national framework for heatwave mitigation and management 24, which takes these efforts further, has been developed by NDMA. It shifts focus from short-term heatwave responses to long-term preparedness and mitigation. Several innovations have been incorporated in this and include localized vulnerability assessments to tailor the program to specific needs. There is much emphasis on community participation, multi-sectoral engagement. In addition, institutional capacity building is aimed at better sustainability of the projects. All this is not possible without financing mechanisms which have been catered for. This framework extends the focus from preparedness to mitigation, advocating for locally owned and context specific HAPs. The approach has included multiple stakeholders across sectors, including government agencies, meteorologists, public health experts, and city planners. It has actively encouraged continuous consultations within these stakeholders. Key institutional efforts involve encouraging states to notify heat as a disaster for better resource allocations. Officers with specific responsibility towards heat waves have been designated with clear cut responsibilities. States are being mandated to conduct periodic updates of the HAPs with multiple departments being involved, including urban planning, healthcare, and labor. It is important to strengthen coordinating mechanisms. While the number of HAPs across India has increased, implementation remains a challenge. The focus is now on scaling up successful interventions and ensuring local ownership. For example, the adoption of cool roofs and green infrastructure is being encouraged, focusing on preparedness when early warning systems emerged as the norm. The strengthening of IMD NDMA coordination is being done to provide localized heat alerts. Dissemination is being done more efficiently through the newly acquired Cooling Alert Protocol. Revising working hours and providing cooling vests for outdoor workers are among the practical measures. Concept of cool rooms with adequate drinking water in high-risk urban areas provides temporary solace to those who are affected by travel and frequent movement. The health system is critical component with hospitals and primary health care centers with basic heat management protocols, with water becoming more scarce, promoting rooftop rainwater harvesting and water kiosk in vulnerable communities is also being done with more than 250 HAPs in place. The challenge now is about spreading awareness and transforming cities and communities into heat resilient systems that can withstand rising temperatures in the year ahead. A national framework for heat mitigation and framework has been developed by the NDMA, a national framework for heat mitigation and management, focusing on locally owned and context specific HAPs heat action plans. In an increasingly unpredictable global climate, India-France ties signals stability. Both countries must maintain momentum. Talks between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron, held this week on the sidelines of the multilateral AI Action Summit in Paris, co-chaired by the two leaders, signaled significant progress made in key areas. These include nuclear energy, defense cooperation, and joint projects in third countries. Nuclear collaboration has emerged as the cornerstone of India France ties. Both countries have committed to jointly developing nuclear reactors as reflected in the signed letter of intent on small modular reactors and advanced modular reactors. France, a global leader in nuclear reactor technology, brings critical expertise to India's expansion plans on nuclear energy. This aligns with Indian government's target of generating 100 gigawatts of nuclear energy by 2047 as outlined in 2526. 100 gigawatts of nuclear energy by 2047. A French energy giant, EDF, is working with the NPCI, a Nuclear Power Corporation of India, and EDF, French energy giant, is working with NPCIL to develop next generation reactors, including the Jaitapur nuclear plant, which is set to become the world's largest with a proposed capacity of 9,900 megawatts. This was PM Modi's sixth visit to France, while President Macron's last visit to Delhi in January 24 as the chief guest for India's 75th Republic Day. India must leverage the special relationship while insulating it from systemic inefficiencies. Delhi's defense procurement, for instance, has long suffered from delays caused by red tape, policy revisions, and budgetary constraints, factors that have slowed down military modernizations. The ambitious Project 75I, acquiring six next generation submarines with advanced air independent propulsion technology, has remained stalled due to vendor negotiations and policy rights. The Scorpion class submarine under Project 75I, developed with French collaboration, has also faced setbacks and delays. Air independent propulsion technologies. Six next generation submarines with air independent propulsion technology. Against the backdrop of an increasingly unpredictable global order, India and France need to maintain momentum in ties. US President Donald Trump has done little to assuage fears around his announcements and promises, most recently with respect to Ukraine and Europe's security following his conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Amid uncertainty, France has emerged as a reliable partner for India. Acquisition of 36 Rafale fighter jets in 2016 further cemented military ties. While joint naval exercises in Indo-Pacific such as Varuna underscore a shared commitment to maritime security. France has consistently backed India on key global issues, including Delhi's long-standing bid for permanent seat at the UNSC. Delhi and Paris must build on their strong bilateral ties and solidify their partnership as the pillar of stability in the global landscape that is becoming more erratic. Work Amendment Bill, Bill. Work Amendment Bill deals with the issues too important to be rushed through Parliament. They must be discussed thoroughly. Even though unresolved issues persisted around the management and governance of Waqf properties after the Waqf Act of 1995, Waqf Amendment Bill 24 came under a cloud because it was seen to be formulated without consultation with stakeholders, including and especially the All India Muslim Personal Law Board. The decision to refer the bill to a joint committee of parliament was welcome. It was hoped that this would ensure diversity of voices and inputs. In this context, the furor at the panel's report was tabled on February 13. The opposition insisted that dissenting remarks had been redacted from the report. The Treasury benches issued a strong denial. Is unfortunate. It threatens to derail debate on issues that need to be discussed seriously and openly in the country's highest deliberative forum. The Waqf Bill has national significance for at least three reasons. First, Waqf boards control a vast amount of land and property. Second, a large number of Waqf properties or private holdings donated for charitable and pious purpose face encroachment issues and are marked by unclear ownership. And finally, most significantly, many of the proposed amendments, such as allowing non Muslim members on work boards, making the executive the final arbiter in case of properties disputed by the government, and giving the power to the center to order an audit of any work at any time, has stroked apprehensions. These fears are natural and religious rights of Muslim minority may be undermined. The issue is emotive, given that many Waqf properties are mosques, madrasas, and graveyards. The way forward is to balance the need for reform with respect to minority rights. Questions of eminent domain over religious charitable properties cannot be resolved if the process by which law is passed is opaque. Given the disputes over Muslim places of worship and sometimes disturbing rhetoric on minority issues from people associated with the ruling party, the fear of unilateral change as the character of religious properties must be addressed. Responding to opposition's criticism, Home Minister Amit Shah welcomed further dissenting remarks to the JPC report, and the report itself was tabled with a corrigendum. This is the first step towards accommodation. Going ahead, it is important that a bill and report are discussed threadbare along with the larger issues that contain with consequential and sensitive legislation that must not be rushed or pushed through. Mixed doubles may end up being key if the format is revived in tennis. PM discusses cybersecurity terror with intelligence chief Tulsi Gabbard ahead of Trump meeting. Modi connects with Musk. Top officials talks tech and trade. New defense framework, fair deal among issues on the table. Ahead of his meeting with the US President, Prime Minister Narendra Modi met key members of his team, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, and billionaire Elon Musk. Among the issues discussed were intelligence cooperation in counterterrorism, cybersecurity, defense technology, and security cooperation in AI, semiconductors, and space. Modi and Waltz also discussed strategic technologies as well defense industrial cooperation and civil nuclear energy with an emphasis on small modular reactors and counter-terrorism. A new defense framework, a fair deal in 2025, and continuation on the cooperation on critical technologies are on the table at the meeting between Modi and Trump. Modi, who arrived in Washington D.C. Late last night, began his visit by meeting newly appointed Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard just hours after her confirmation. With Gabbard, whom heads the entire US intelligence community of 17 intelligence agencies, including the CIA, the discussions focused on intelligence cooperation in counterterrorism, cybersecurity, and emerging threats. Met USA's Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard on Washington, D.C., congratulated her on her confirmation. With NSA, Mike Waltz, defense technology and security dominated the conversation, and the focus was on cooperation in AI, semiconductors, and space. Had a fruitful meeting with the NSA. Mike Waltz, he has always been a great friend of India. Defense technology and security are important aspects of India USA ties, and we had a wonderful discussion around these issues. A statement by the MEA said the discussions touched upon ways to further deepen the India US comprehensive global strategic partnership with a focus on strategic technologies as well as defense industrial cooperation and civil nuclear energy with an emphasis on small modular reactors and counter-terrorism. They also discussed international and regional issues of mutual interest. With Musk, world's richest man and owner of Tesla, SpaceX, and X, who leads the Trump administration's Department of Government Efficiency, Modi discussed space, mobility, technology, and innovation. Had a very good meeting with Elon Musk in Washington, D.C. We discussed various issues, including those he is passionate about, such as space, mobility, technology, and innovation. I talked about India's efforts towards reform and furthering minimum government and maximum governance. Modi's two-day visit to the US comes amid concerns in New Delhi over Trump's aggressive positioning on immigration and tariffs. With Trump's reciprocal tariff policy, Modi's key priority is likely to become preempt any punitive trade action by Washington against India. Trump administration officials said they are moving forward with talks on a bilateral trade deal, and they hoped to have a deal place in this year. They would like to see more defense and energy sales to balance the trade deficit. India and US have bilateral trade of about $200 billion, and India has a trade surplus about 40 to $50 billion in its favor. We envision a stronger defense partnership that's procurement and moving forward on things like defense exercises. While sources said the new defense framework is likely to be announced, the India-US defense cooperation is based on new framework for India-US defense cooperation, which was renewed for 10 years in 2015. The two sides are expected to continue The two sides are expected to continue cooperation on potential issues, threats from China, and how to strengthen the Quad partnership to promote stability and peace across the Indo Pacific. The Trump administration is also keen to sell US energy to India, as this has potential to bring down the trade deficit. US officials said the US is India's sixth largest energy trade partner, and India's hydrocarbon trade with the US was $13.6 billion in FY 23-24, a trade deal where both sides are able to make concessions on tariff and market access is expected to reduce the trade deficit as well. The Modi-Trump meeting comes a day after the US president spoke to both Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in a bid to end the Russian-Ukraine war. This would be the first bilateral talks between the two leaders after Trump assumes presidency for the second term last month. The president, I think, will welcome a conversation with respected world leaders, including Modi, about how we can constructively move towards peace in Europe. Modi's visit also comes days after Trump's administration deported 104 illegal immigrants in handcuffs and shackles on a military aircraft, triggering outrage in India. India would want the US authorities to treat the illegal immigrants humanely and to not let the issue of illegal immigration impact the legal channels, including the H-1B visa program. After his arrival, Modi posted on X, landed in Washington DC a short while ago, looking forward to meeting President of the United States Donald Trump and building upon the US-India Comprehensive Global Strategic Partnership. India-US Global Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. Our nations are working closely for the benefit of the people and for better future of our planet. He was received by the acting chief of protocol, AP Jones. Modi is staying at the Blair House, the US presidential guest house at the heart of Washington, D.C. He also met the entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, who was earlier one of the Republican presidential candidates and is now aspiring to run for an Ohio's governor's position. In a dramatic shift, Trump talks to Putin and Zelensky in a bid to end Ukraine war stuns Europe. As President Donald Trump jettisoned 3 years of US policy and announcements, he would likely meet soon with Russian President Vladimir Putin to negotiate a peace deal in the almost 3 year war in Ukraine. Ukrainian President Zelensky said he would not accept any negotiations that don't include his country in the talks. European governments too demanded a seat at the table. Trump, who spoke with the Putin and Zelensky in separate phone calls on Wednesday, said both leaders expressed a desire for peace and he ordered top US officials to begin talks on ending the war in Ukraine. The conversations came after Trump's defense secretary said Kyiv would have to give up its long held goals of joining the NATO military alliance and regaining all of its territory seized by Russia, signaling a dramatic shift in Washington's approach to the conflict. After speaking with Putin for more than an hour, Trump said the Russian leader, who launched a full scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, wants the war to end and they discussed getting a ceasefire in not too distant future. He wants it to end, he doesn't want to end it and then go back to fighting 6 months later, Trump told reporters. I think we are on way to getting peace. I think President Putin wants peace. Zelensky wants peace and I want peace. I just want to see people stop getting killed. The Kremlin on Thursday said it was impressed by Trump's position on ending the war and that preparations were underway for meeting between Trump and Putin. Trump said the first meeting would probably take place soon in Saudi Arabia. In a post on his social media platform, Trump said Secretary of State Marco Rubio, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and National Security Advisor Michael Waltz and Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff would lead negotiations ending the war. Trump also said Rubio and Vice President JD Vance would hold talks about the war on Friday in Munich, where Ukrainian officials were expected to attend annual security conference. Trump and Zelensky spoke about Trump's call with Putin, and Zelensky's office said the conversation lasted for almost about an hour. I had a meaningful conversation with Portas. We talked about opportunities to achieve peace, discussed our readiness to work together, and Ukraine's technological capabilities, including drones and other advanced industries. Zelensky later said that main thing was to not allow everything to go on the Putin's plan. We cannot accept it as an independent country. Any agreements made without us, I articulate this very clearly to our partners. Any bilateral negotiations about Ukraine, not on other topics, but any bilateral talks about Ukraine without us, we will not accept, Zelensky said as he visited a nuclear power plant in western Ukraine. Zelensky said during his conversation with Trump, the US president told him he wanted to speak to both Russian and Ukrainian leaders. At the same time, he never mentioned in a conversation that Putin and Russia was a priority. We today trust these words. For us, it was very important to preserve the support of the United States of America. Meanwhile, Kremlin spokesperson said that Trump Putin call was very important and that there was political will on both Russian and US sides to find a settlement and end the war. There is political will, which was emphasized during yesterday's conversation, to conduct a dialogue in search of settlement. Peskov said there is an agreement that a peaceful negotiated settlement is possible. The previous US administration held the view that everything needed to be done to keep the war going. The current administration, as far as we understand, adheres to the point of view that everything must be done to stop the war for peace to prevail. Peskov told reporters, "We are more impressed with the position of current administration and we are open to dialogue." European powers, including Britain, France, and Germany, said they had to be part of any future negotiations on the fate of Ukraine. US reach out can reshape global order, open a window for India. As Prime Minister Narendra Modi meets Donald Trump at the White House, a narrow focus on tariffs and immigration may obscure the broader transformations that American president is initiating and at a furious pace. Locating the PM's conversation with Trump in the context of shifting global landscape is crucial not only for bilateral ties with the US but also for India's evolving role in increasingly turbulent international order. Modi arrives at the White House is at a pivotal moment when Trump is reshaping greater power relations. Of course, with Trump, one sweeping statement always runs the risk of being brushed aside by the next. The walk back at the as predictable as the push forward. But if he walks his talk, invoking the World War II with Russian President Vladimir Putin about ending the war in Ukraine, the restructuring can potentially be as significant as the Yalta Summit held 80 years ago. That's where US President Roosevelt, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and Soviet leader Joseph Stalin established a framework for the post World War II global order. Russia as a pariah by a West. In his social media post, Trump noted that he and Putin reflected on the great history of our nations and highlighted their successful collaboration during the World War II, emphasizing the need for renewed cooperation for the global benefit. Trump stated that Putin shares his common sense approach to the urgency of concluding the war in Ukraine and announced the immediate commencement of ceasefire talks. He also mentioned plans for a face to face meeting with Putin in Saudi Arabia soon. What about Europe, the subject of Trump Putin's talks? Much like in February 1945, Europeans are not at the table. Europe is reeling from the implications of Trump's Ukraine policy outlined yesterday by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The US subjects the US rejects the idea of Ukraine's NATO membership and believes that recovery of Kyiv's lost territory is unrealistic. He insisted that Europe should must shoulder the responsibility for securing Ukraine's future and ruled out US or NATO troops for peacekeeping after any settlement with Russia. Trump is urging his European allies to grow up and take greater responsibility. This is not the first instance of Washington and Moscow seeking any mutual understanding. In the recent years, President Joe Biden met Putin in Geneva in June 21, but those talks faltered due to Putin's extensive demands, including a rollback of NATO's expansion since 1997. Currently, it remains unclear what Putin's terms for peace are. However, it is reasonable to assume that Moscow is in a weaker position today than in 2021 following the 3 years of conflict, potentially making it more receptive to a settlement. If circumstances align favorably in a significant if, Trump may travel to Moscow to celebrate the 80th anniversary of Russia's Victory Day in May. For Putin, a new Yalta symbolizes US recognition of Russia as a global great power and its role in shaping international system. Trump has done just that by acknowledging Russia's contributions during the World War II. Putin's war in Ukraine appears less about territorial expansion and more about asserting influence in establishing a new security order in Europe that favors Moscow over the post Soviet arrangements of 1991. Implications of Trump-Putin deal for Asia remain uncertain. How might this be burgeoning bromance affect Moscow's ties with Beijing? Is Trump shifting his focus from Europe to address the challenge posed by China? Alternatively, will he extend his peace strategy to Taiwan, seeking a potential agreement with Beijing? Will Xi Jinping's presence at the Moscow May celebrations herald a new era of great power bonhomie? Can Europe and Asia acknowledge new spheres of influence carved out by great powers? Modi will have the opportunity to gauge Trump's overarching strategy during their meeting today. Unlike in the mid 20th century, when India had little influence over the global order, despite contributing over 2 million soldiers to the Second World War, Delhi is now better positioned to safeguard its interests. However, achieving tangible outcomes will require agile diplomacy. Modi's discussions with Trump are likely to extend beyond geopolitics to encompass geoeconomics for India. The stakes tonight involve more than haggling about tariffs, it is about finding a common ground with US on restructuring a global economic system that currently favors select few major exporters, particularly China. Both US and India face massive trade deficits with China. Trump's trade advisors are calling for a new global economic regime led by democratic nations to facilitate balanced trade. Modi has every reason to explore this concept with Trump. President's rule in Manipur Assembly under suspended animation center announcement has come after Parliament adjourns to meet in March. 4 days after N. Biren Singh resigned as Manipur Chief Minister, the centre Thursday announced that President rule has been imposed in the state and assembly placed under suspended animation. President Draupadi Murmu's decision, announced hours after two houses of parliament adjourned to meet again in March 10 for the remainder of the budget session, followed a report from Manipur Governor Ajay Kumar Bhalla. The state has been roiled by ethnic violence since May 23. Before the opposition imposition of president's rule, a security plan was prepared and the state police and intelligence agencies were said to be monitoring movements of certain individuals to prevent any untoward incident. The BJP-led government in the state collapsed on February 9 when Chief Minister Biren Singh resigned shortly after returning to Imphal from New Delhi, where he held talks with Home Minister Amit Shah and BJP President JP Nadda. Accepting Singh's resignation, the governor issued a notification nixing the assembly session by declaring the January order summoning the House on February 10 null and void. Earlier, Congress has threatened to bring a no confidence motion against Singh and his government during the assembly session. Ever since Singh's resignation, meetings have been underway in Imphal among NDA partners to find a successor in the Manipur House of 60 assembly elections. The 60 assembly elections in the state are not due until 2027. Current strength is 59 following the death of NPP MLA N. Kaisi last month. Of 59 legislators, 37 are from BJP, 6 are from NPP, 5 are from NPF, and 5 are from Congress. 6 are from NPP, 5 NPF, 5 Congress, 2 from Koki People's Alliance, 1 from JDU, and 3 independents. 37,655, 37,643, 53, 2 from Koki People's Alliance, 1 from JDU, 56, and 3 independents, 59. Both KPA and NPP, which were part of the government, has withdrawn support after the violence. Both Kuki People Alliance and NPP, which were part of the government, had withdrawn support after the violence. At least two NPP MLAs continued to back Biren Singh even after the party formally withdrew its support. In a notification issued, Union Home Secretary Govind Mohan said the president has received a report from the governor, and after considering the report and other information received by me, I am satisfied that situation has arisen in which the government of the state cannot be carved on in accordance with the provisions of the constitution. Now, therefore, in exercise of powers conferred by the Article 356 of the Constitution and all other powers enabling me in that behalf, I hereby proclaim that I assume to myself as President of India all functions of the government of Manipur and all powers vested in exercisable by the governor of that state. I declare that the powers of the legislature of the said state will be exercisable by or under the authority of Parliament. A statement issued by the Manipur government said that the state assembly was now under suspended animation. Responding to the announcement, the leader of opposition Congress party leaders Rahul Gandhi said the imposition of president rule in Manipur was belated admission by the BJP of their complete inability to govern the state. The Kuki-Zo groups welcomed the move. President rule is more preferable than a change of CM. Will give a ray of hope to Kukizo, and we believe that it will be a one step closer to political solution. I believe the groundwork to end the violence will begin, which will pave the way for a conducive environment for political dialogue. Meanwhile, Biren Singh on X addressed to indigenous friends and said, our land and identity are under threat. We, with a small population and limited resources, we stand vulnerable. I monitored and detected illegal immigration tirelessly until May 22-23, but after the tragic events, our state machinery has struggled to respond effectively. He said an unguarded 398-kilometer border with Myanmar and the free movement regime was rapidly shifting Manipur's demographic balance. This is not speculation, it is happening before our eyes. Since our governments took charge in May 2017, the challenge has only intensified. After the May 323 incident, the situation has become even more critical. Illegal immigration continues to be on the rise, threatening the very fabric of our society. So far, we have only identified a fraction of those who have entered our land, but what about the ones who have remained undetected to this day? I urge all authorities concerned to take a very serious note and intensify efforts to detect and deport illegal immigrants from Manipur. As for me, I will continue this fight with unwavering commitment in every way I can. Work bill report, opposition protest redaction of dissent, Corriendum restores its notings. The tabling of the report of the Joint Committee of the Work Amendment Bill 24 led to disruptions and chaos in both houses of Parliament Thursday, with the opposition alleging that the dissent notes had been deleted and the government rejecting the charge. Amid the ruckus, the Union Home Minister Amit Shah, speaking in the Lok Sabha, said some members of opposition had said their disputes had not been fully included. He said the party has no objection to whatever the opposition wanted to include if the speaker felt it appropriate. As per parliamentary procedure. In Rajya Sabha, BJP MP Vishram Kulkarni, who had tabled the report in the House in the morning, placed a corriendum to Appendix 5 of the report in the post lunch sitting. The chapter is said to contain the notes that were redacted in the report tabled earlier. As he tabled the corriendum, the opposition MP said it proved the mis- House had been misled earlier in the morning. As soon as Kulkarni, BJP MP from Maharashtra, placed the committee report in Rajya Sabha, there was commotion and the House was adjourned for a while. UP, Maharashtra, and Bengal lead railways push for station makeovers launched in 2022. The scheme aims to transform identified railway stations into city centers of business leisures. Total investment 1 lakh crore, total expenditure 8,000 crore, projected expenditure 12,000 crore. Adani Group exits Sri Lanka's wind project. Supreme Court eased bail norms in ED cases. A new ruling turns the clock back. Supreme Court on Thursday set aside Patna High Court granting bail to an accused in an ED case and ordered him to surrender. In search of baseball players for Olympics in Asiad may look to cricket. 38th National Games. Jamia students protesting against disciplinary action detained let off. Dummy schools cannot replace educational experience offered by full-fledged school system CBSE. If Waqf law comes, Muslims won't forgive Nitish, Chandrababu and Chirag for their betrayal. Both houses of parliament on Thursday saw an uproar by the opposition MPs over the tabling of the report of the Joint Committee of Parliament on the Waqf Amendment Bill, while the opposition alleged that portions of the members' dissent notes were deleted from the report. All India Majlis-e-Ittehadul Muslimin AIMIM chief and Lok Sabha MP from Hyderabad, Owasi, who was part of the parliamentary committee, speaks to Asad Rahman on the panel's functioning, its report, and opposition members' dissent notes. What do you have to say about the Waqf committee's functioning? The proceedings of the committee were held in a haphazard manner. The chairman, BJP MP Jagdambi Kapal, used his prerogative in a wrong way for calling stakeholders. Some of the members had been involved in terror activities, while a few facing murder charges. What stake do they have on the work bill on the issue? Second, many organizations that had nothing to do were called. Third, tenure of the committee was supposed to be till the last day of the ongoing budget session, but was advanced. How it is possible for members to read the document within a few hours and give dissent notes? This tells you that they did not want our dissent notes, which contradicted the unconstitutional bill. Our amendments, what is your take on the amendments proposed by NDA members, which were approved by the panel? Our amendments lost out as we did not have the numbers while the NDA and BJP had numerical strength. The amendments moved by the BJP members make the bill worse. The worst part is that not only the non-Muslims can be ex officio members, non-Muslims can also be appointed to work boards on a nomination basis. There's there has also there is also a need to demonstrate that you are a Muslim. What is the meaning of demonstrate? How do you demonstrate you are a Muslim or you are not one? Is that legal language? You say work by user only if the property is not in dispute and it does not belong to the government. What is legal definition of dispute? Anyone can create a dispute either verbally or by giving a representation. According to the bill, if anyone complains to the collector that a work property is not a work property, and if an inquiry is ordered, the property will cease to be a work property till the probe is completed. There is no time limit to it. The collector is the part of the executive. It is a grave violation of the theory of separation of power and an example of how this work by user amendment will be used against the interest of the Waqf. For instance, the mosque in front of parliament, the government as well as the Waqf claims it is theirs. Now after the bill, it becomes a law that the government decides it is their property. You see, you will see a sticker pasted on the masjid which will read this is the government property and you cannot pray here. Also, once it becomes a law, the members of the work board will be appointed without an election. This is which is undemocratic. So, by appointing your members, you will take over work property. The bill is in violation of Article 29 of the Constitution when the boards of other religions like Hindus, Christians, and Sikhs do explicitly say that non practicing the religion cannot be made members of their boards and have their own tribunals to deal with disputes. Something exactly opposite is being done. The amendments have been brought in from an ideological point of view. You just want to destroy the Waqf board. The report says there is a threat to STs and their lands and there has recommended the ministry to take appropriate measures. In my dissent note, I have written that you cannot do it. Legally, a Muslim can be a tribal. For instance, you have Lakshadweep MP Mohammed Faisal and Ladakh MP Hanifa who are tribals but are Muslims. How can you curtail the freedom of religion? House has jurisdiction, says VP on opposition move to impeach Justice Yadav. Government introduces income tax bill, asks Speaker to send it to select panel. Work panel ignored Muslims' opinion, pushed undemocratic process, can't see rationale for sending motion to remove judge to Supreme Court. What do you make of the Rajya Sabha's chairman remarks? After all, an impeachment notice was given last December. The fact of the matter is that when a motion is moved for the removal of judge, the rules of the House require it if it is in Rajya Sabha, at least 50 members should affix their signatures, and of course they should set on the grounds on which it is sought to be moved, and all that the chairman of the Rajya Sabha is supposed to do is to verify the signatures and allow the motion to be carried unless he has some real reasons as to why the motion is not legally entitled to be moved. It is something that is entirety within the House. It has nothing to do with any institution outside the House. So I can't possibly see the rationale for sending the motion to the Supreme Court because they, as a matter of law, have nothing to do with the motion of the House. It is only when the motion is passed and under the Judges Inquiry Court a committee is set up and then the committees give the report and then at the point of the time through the Supreme Court that report is sent to the Rajya Sabha and proceedings takes place thereafter. Rajya Sabha Chairman Jagdeep Dhankar on Thursday weighed on the issues of opposition MPs to a removal of Allahabad High Court Justice Shekhar Yadav over his controversial remark at the VHP said the jurisdiction for the subject matter constitutionally lies in exclusivity with the chairman Rajya Sabha and in eventuality with the parliament and the president. I am seized of an undated notice for the motion received on December 13 December 24 bearing purported signatures of members of Rajya Sabha seeking removal of them the jurisdiction. Opposition alleges bias in allocations, aims to boost growth, private investment, finance minister. Assam Rifle collects biometric of 7,000 Myanmar residents who crossed border. In case of any wrongdoing, we should know their whereabouts. As part of the stricter free movement regime that is now in place, with India has learned to have allowed the movement of 7,000 people from neighboring country after collecting their documents as well as biometric details, which is linked to National Data Center. Last year, Center has announced that it would start the FMR, but faced a backlash not just from civil society but across from the political spectrum. The Nagaland BJP, including the BJP in Nagaland and Mizoram and Manipur's Naga and Kukizo communities. With resistance, the center in late December sent communications to the government of Manipur, Mizoram, and Nagaland directing them to implement amended and firmer FMR. A senior Assam Rifles officer said the entry of people from Myanmar is currently being regulated from 22 border points, which will increase to 43. Security personnel are issuing border passes after collecting their biometric details. According to amended FMR in place since December, people from either country have to produce proof of residence within 10 km of the border issued by the local police station. People from either country have to produce proof of residence within 10 km of the border issued by the local police, village chief, or any government recognized authority. After they present this, the Assam Rifles personnel take their photograph, biometric details, including fingerprints, and issue them a border pass. We are collecting their details because we should know who is coming and staying in our areas. If anyone commits anything wrong, we should know their whereabouts. The single entry pass is usable for 7 days and within 10 kilometers of the border. Users have to deposit their pass at the same time crossing point from which they entered. They are not interested in going to other areas because they are mainly coming to meet their relatives. While the centre's announcement to scrap the FMR had been welcomed by the Manipur government, it was met with stiff opposition from Mizoram and Nagaland. The state government had alleged illegal migration from Myanmar as one of the prime factors responsible for the ethnic conflict between Meiteis and Kukijos since May 23. India shared a 1643-kilometer border with Myanmar which passes through Arunachal and Nagaland. Demarcation of 1472 km of border has been completed. Construction work on two pilot projects for hybrid surveillance systems have been awarded to Assam Rifles and the work is in progress. Why do you need Dhaka's nod to send back illegal migrants? Bench question centers West Bengal. Questioning the center and West Bengal over their stand that confirmation from Bangladesh was necessary to send back illegal immigrants to that country. Underlining it has consequences also for the security. Council said confirmation from Bangladesh is required before the immigrant can be handed over with travel documents. Underlining it has consequences for the security of the country, Justice Pardiwala said today, we have reached a stage where we need to take immediate steps to send them back, and they should not stay back. Just imagine thousand plus people are under trials. When an immigrant is an apprehended, put to trial, and convicted, what is the charge against him? That you are an illegal migrant, that you are not entitled to stay in this country without any valid passport or any document, and we hold you guilty under Foreigners Act. Once this comes not challenged and not stayed by any superior court, and what is the idea is in asking neighbors country to tell this country about the nationality and verification. The bench was hearing a suo motu case suggested by Calcutta High Court. It was later transferred to Supreme Court. Tamil Nadu Governor row over assents to bill's apex court frames 12 questions. Space cameras to paint a slice of ISRO mission tech in daily lives. The cameras and software used in Chandrayaan 3 can be used by automotive industry to prevent collisions. Draft amendments to Advocate Acts propose courts boycott ban centers nominees to BCI. CRPF Jawan kills two colleagues at the Manipur camp, takes its own life. Man who saved Rishabh Pant attempts suicide, girlfriend dies. The man who saved Rishabh Pant's life after cricketer met with an accident in November 22 allegedly tried with suicide along with his girlfriend in UP. Singh said the two wanted to marry each other but their families were opposed to their relationship. Video shows stone pelting on Kumbh trains, RPF files 4 FIRs. Dissent that works panel report redacted. Government agenda politically motivated. High Court gives nod to women to end 25-week pregnancy. Europe, Ukraine demand to be included in Trump-Putin talk. Afghan asylum seeker drives into crowds in Munich, leaves 28 injured in a suspected attack. People are naming bugs, rats, and cats after their exes this Valentine's Day. Fewer takers of for sovereign green bonds as investors seek to avoid lower yields. When RBI auctioned two sovereign green bonds worth 10,000 crore in November and January, bonds valued for 7,000 crore remained unsold as investors sought higher yields. Without a green premium, these bonds offer no financial advantage over regular bonds. The center has yet to secure any significant green premium on sovereign green bonds. Three reasons why Honda Nissan merger talks collapsed. Trump Modi meeting as tariffs take center stage. A look at what India trades with the US. So that's all for today. See you in the next one.